In addition to the normal material in this lesson, we're going to talk in this video about posting a data back to the page, a single page. Normally, at least so far, we have used a regular HTML page with a HTML form. We submit the form using the post method, and a PHP page, which is part of the action attribute, then handles that request and does whatever it's supposed to do. But in some cases, it's convenient to have the user request a page and then post data back to that same page, and that's what we're going to talk about here briefly. Normally, when a user requests a page of yours, the first request is an HTTP GET request. We haven't talked too much about the difference between a GET and a POST request, but nevertheless, the first one is usually a GET. And then if the user fills out a form and clicks the submit button, then as long as you set the method equal to post, then the post method is what the browser uses to package up the name and value pairs of the form elements and send it back to you. What we're going to do here is have a single page combine both of these tasks. Our first demo page here has a text box only and a submit button. And let's look at the code. But the way this works, before we get into this, is if it's the GET request, or at least if it's not a POST request, then we do one thing. We send one chunk of code, and then if it is a POST, that means it's the second time the user has requested it, or at least the second time they've sent it. It's been sent. And when they click the submit button, we can detect when that post happens and then send them the results of whatever it is that was supposed to happen. So here in the top is the part that kind of makes all this happen. We say if is set. Well, first we need to know a couple things about the form. We've got a text box called name and a submit button that has a name submit and a value submit. So when the user clicks the submit button after they've received the page, whatever's typed in the text box will be sent with the name attribute, name Dave, and then the name submit will also be sent with the value submit, which is not all that interesting in and of itself. But nevertheless, we can tell when that submit happens. If we say is set, which tests for a value, if it's is set during in the post global super global array, if that word submit is there, if the name submit is there, that means the form has been submitted. So here's how it's really pretty simple. If the form has been submitted, it's a postback. That means and if not, it's the first time they offered it. So if we get submit in the post method, the user has submitted the document. But if we're looking at this page and there's no postback, that means it's the first request. So we set a Boolean variable here is postback. That we set that to true if the form was submitted and false if it wasn't. And then we just send two different chunks of code using an if block, depending on whether it was a postback or not. So if it is a postback, meaning the user clicked submit, then we're just going to say, note that here is the opening bracket and here is the closing bracket of this if statement. And it leaves, it cuts across the PHP tags. Here is the bracket starting the if. Here's the closing PHP tag. Here's some regular old HTML with a little PHP stuck in there. And then we pick up another starting PHP tag, closing bracket for this if. And then that's the if part. So if it's a postback, meaning we say you have submitted the form, and we just really reflect their name here. In the middle we splice in echo the name. But if it wasn't a postback, meaning it was the first time they got the page before they did anything, then we do the else part, which is here. It starts in the PHP tags. This is the opening bracket of the else tag. And then it jumps to a regular HTML section form, and we send the form information. We then leave HTML. We go back to PHP for the closing bracket of the else. Here's the opening bracket of the else. Here's the closing bracket of the else, and this ends it. And so this is in some ways, although you have to be careful of mixing it up, in some ways this is easier than trying to concatenate a long string of things using echo and concatenation. So let's see what happens. When I first, let me do this the complete way. So I open my browser, I request the page. This is going to be an HTTP GET request, and that means when the web server sends this request back, it notices that nothing has been posted yet. So it just sends the initial stuff. It sends the form, and then you type in Dave or whatever and hit submit. Now when you submit it back, it detects that it's been a submission, and instead of sending the HTML form, it just sends this HTML which says you have submitted the form. Thanks. So this is the easiest way to do this, but let me one more time quickly go over this. You're testing for a postback. If there's no postback, you send the form. If there is a postback, you send something different based on whatever they sent you. You can test for that. There's several ways to test for this postback, and this is not necessarily the most common. But if we get a post reply, that means they did post it rather than by clicking the submit button. So if we get that, if they posted something with that name submit in it, which we have down here, it's a postback. We set a Boolean variable says true that it is, and if it's not a postback, it means it's the first time they requested the page. And we'll set that variable to false, and then we say if it is a postback, send this HTML. Otherwise, send this HTML.